Team Thailand for now. We haven't seen these two groups fight against each other yet, but when it comes to recapping what Pakistan actually has to offer yesterday, they are very consistent at getting themselves in the top four. I would say even top three, except for the 30 Wrangle map yesterday. They were nowhere near the top four, but they still managed to secure themselves plenty of elimination in every single map. Now, they are the only team for Team Pakistan yesterday, the only teams in the top three of their own respective group without a chicken but maintain in the top three. That's a huge statement. It means the eliminations is their primary objective for the entirety of this tournament. They don't really see chicken dinner as something to be main focus in this event. You know what? That chicken might just be another bonus for the add up numbers.
Yeah, and can you only imagine if they start scoring some chicken dinners, then it might just be like what we saw coming in from Group A, where the members of Team Vietnam has been able to go back to back to back. Well, even without it, they've always ended up in what? Top three, top two. And there were instances that they walked out of the game with more than 10 elimination points, so that itself is already a chicken dinner by its own. Of course, now on our screens, Team Vietnam getting themselves ready, as well as they have so far shown us that they have remained to be the most consistent in bagging chicken dinners. And at the very same time, on the rounds that they were to drop out early, there was only that one round. They still had at least 4 takedowns before they end out that round. So on an average score at the moment, Team Vietnam has about 13-point ratio per round. If you think you just add some of the numbers together, it's just absolutely scary.
Myanmar, Nepal, Pakistan. This is going to be the top teams coming up from Group B. Whilst on Group A, my eyes set to it. But we do have 8 slots, so still good news for the teams, which means out of 12, unfortunately, 4 will be relegated. I hope. It's so difficult to call out for this tournament. Everybody's so good at this point. You know, you love all the players because they have been with us for such a long time, but we can't pick and choose at this point. Everybody feels like they're deserving to have that slot, but unfortunately, 4 will be relegated by the end of the day.
Yeah, and of course, without further ado, we've done just about enough waiting as we hop right into the first game of the finals here in the Asian Games Qualifiers PUBG Mobile Asian Games version. Here we go.
And now we officially start our first game of the finals, the 2026 Asian Games qualifier for the PUBG Mobile version. When it comes to the first map, Flight Path, don't let it fool you because it looks very beautiful, evenly divided a map into 2 sides. Whether you want to go to the west side or the east side, it's within the reach of any teams to drop wherever they fancy. But the issue is always going to be the circle. We had too much Yasnaya Polyana circle today. I wish we have no Yasnaya circle at all for today, please. We haven't got ourselves SNB yet, so I'm looking forward for that circle just to see the caliber of our players to be adapting that unusual, very south direction.
But if you think about it, Choo Choo, Group A has not seen a single Yasnaya circle, so it's only to quickly loot up and also get those vehicles to drive all the way up north.
But major news, good news for the side of Team Malaysia. They are the only team coming up from the northern side, which going to be the slightly North Island that divided all the maps into 3 different types of islands, right? So Team Malaysia, they definitely have the upper hand here when it comes to taking the control of the northern side without being touched by any teams in the first few stages. Since I think there will be some time, a couple of teams might start rotating there quite early, because we do know when it comes to moving into direction of the north, everybody will try to avoid to cut across probably Roshok as much as possible. They don't want to stay there too long. There might be a high chance everybody concentrated around there somewhere around stage 3 or 4 later on. But with this sort of circle, do you think it's going to be ended up on Jogopol? Because we had this circle in day number 1, and then it just pulled back down towards the outskirts of Roshok, slightly down south of it. But there's a chance that we might get another northern circle. And you talked about also Indonesian and Team, was it Team Pakistan that they dropped themselves next to each other? I think it was, right?
Yeah, it was around the Fair Pure.
Now, the problem with the first map, it's always going to be the same case. Even though, yes, we've seen both groups play 2 days, but they were in different groups. So there's high chance they might share some neighborhood quite early on here. So it's super important for the teams to really give away as much power they can actually give when it comes to mark their territory as the first map. If not, they have to sacrifice the initial drop spot for the entire day, and that's going to be a nightmare for the teams to just hold on for the entirety to get into the slot today.
True enough. Overall, there's just a lot of consideration, but at least they could treat this as a clean slate. A new group is always a good showing of confidence for them to really hop back on track. And even despite what we have mentioned about certain teams dropping side by side, it does seem like there is no casualties whatsoever in the span of the early game. Just goes to show that every team, they really want a very great control surrounding when it comes down to phase 1. But come stage 3 onwards, you did mention about, areas that could be a good focal point. Surely Rozhok could still be very playable, but I would think that a lot of teams will be pretty interested to take areas like Ruins. You've mentioned Jogopol, which is going to be somewhere that is going to be interesting as well, where the big question is, does it end up on the north side? Does it end up over the south? So very likely teams, if they do control around those edges of the bridges, then that will be great for them to maybe look for opportunities.
Speaking of opportunities, I think everybody's just playing very careful. Not any teams starting any initiation just yet. And it's good news as a start. Even though we saw Pakistan and Team Indonesia dropping themselves quite next to each other, but apparently they have this respective territory that they don't cross that line so far. I think everybody knows what is at stake here, as well as not giving any information too early on. Like I mentioned, it's super important for them not to lose their main compound or initial drop spot, because it will affect the entirety of the Erangel run here today, which you will have majority of the map. So for teams, even Team Saudi Arabia seems toned down as a start, taking a bit much longer time for the looting phase.
True enough. And also, I want to bring to light into the average ratio in a 6 match format. Like, how many points do you think is enough to qualify into, say, top 6, right? Top 6 will be around 45 points. I would say that is pretty much the guarantee line. But when we talk about moving into the top 8, it really depends on how competitive the lobby is, right? And in this case, very, very competitive. That will mean that for teams to move into the top 8, they need to secure themselves at least by a certain margin of 35 points, to say the very least. So if we were to look back into the track record into both Group A as well as Group B, the ones at the borderline, which we saw, Team Jordan, there was also Team Brunei, they definitely need to step up their game. I do know that it's been quite the long night for some of the players who played back in Group B. I hope it wouldn't be too much of a hindrance, where they've gotten just about enough rest for them to carry on their journey. And speaking of taking a journey here, Uzbekistan got themselves a really good spot in shooting range. I mean, over onto the crash site.
but it's not going to be an easy place to defend. Once stage 2 hits, a lot of teams start to rotate towards the northern side. And last we've seen Team Malaysia was the only one in the northern area at first, but I'm not sure where they're at right now. But I love the fact that you pointed at how many points will be the benchmark for them to feel like this is a pretty much safe benchmark of points for them to advance in the next one. But based on these 2 days, but wait a second, it's going to be Mormon spotting out Team Saudi Arabia. We do know they're always actively rotating, especially Prestige. We know exactly where to find information. I assume these two are going to be the scouters for the team for now. Mormon, will he commit to it? I don't think so. Okay, for the top 4, I think when it comes to the top 4 teams, there will be slightly a stretch between the bottom 4 where we do have the top 8. So there's going to be a top 4 probably in those high frag eliminations will ended up in the 80s or 70s minimum. Well, starting from 5th to 8th place, I think that's going to be a huge gap, probably around 20-ish kind of gap. So possibly they might end up around the 40s and the 30s that you mentioned just now.
That could well be probable. But can you imagine if you have a very well-balanced lobby where everyone matches pretty much each other, where you have teams taking down Team A goes on to take Team B, and Team C comes in the way as well. So how does this calculate where you see only small little margins to separate the teams, and you will still be looking at that kind of benchmark where by the time we go into game number 6, it really goes down to who is gonna come up slightly ahead when it comes down to ranking points. Every elimination that they can secure is going to be vital. Now we get ourselves a little bit more of the confirmation that it will indeed be around the North Point, covering the corners of the Jetties as well as Rozhok. And more often than not, teams love to book themselves around that corner of the crash site. And the Kingdom of Saudi Arabia, they are already guarding some of all these bridges. Meanwhile, Vietnam opting to also do the same by the edge of Rozhok.
And speaking of Rozhok, there's 2 bridges around there, just on the northern side of the ruins. We do know there's going to be a choke point around the bridge area where Team Saudi and Team Brunei actually got themselves quite a good position to farm those elimination if they want to, if they bold enough to do so. Because so far we do know that Team Saudi, I wouldn't question when it comes to their initiation of fight, because they usually will start to challenge teams. But for Team Brunei, they're a bit more conservative, so I'm not sure whether they will actually execute that well. But back to us, Team Saudi, like I mentioned before, it's going to be Team Indonesia that will engage, and first contact made a bit of a trade, but Zilhak, I think this is going to be Rosemary for Jeremy. Zilhak is going to be not Joker. Pratama, Yummy. Who's Zilhak again? Is it Potato?
Yeah, I believe so. I had a list with me, but of course I'll get to you on that.
Yeah, Shaman is Potato. So Potato is not playing for their first round here today.
Huh, that's really interesting on how they actually made some of these decisions. But of course, they will be trusting their coach on what some of all these decisions are overall. So look at the current point of time. Losing one member this early on definitely isn't all too much of a good news for Indonesia, which I think it was very similar. I believe FaZe have pointed out that a lot of times they have one member getting taken down, and this time Nepal as well as Malaysia in close proximity. Doesn't seem like they're up for a challenge just yet. And just to confirm with you, Zilhak is actually Snape of Alter Ego.
He didn't play at all for their first day of their qualifiers and group stage though, so I don't know how he will try to adapt himself in this, but it's actually a good addition when it comes to rotating the players, since they do have a different lobby entirely with the merge of Group A and Group B playing together in this final. So it's actually a good start for them to have somebody else to give a different view and perspective towards this tournament, because they weren't doing so great when it comes to Indonesian team in their first day.
Yeah, I certainly do agree. And if we think about this roster coming from Indonesia, Potato at one point, I believe he also spent some time in Alter Ego. So it's kind of like 3 members from Alter Ego, and you have 1 member coming in. Voin Yummy is one of the best players for the past couple of years hailing from Indonesia. So I'm liking what I'm seeing coming in from roster, but they gotta really start work in tandem in order to bring some magic into the squad. Now, Zone moving deeper into the center. I believe that majority of the teams have been able to get a really good read, but Team Jordan, Team Indonesia, Thailand, as well as Kingdom of Saudi Arabia, they need to squeeze into the zone, and this is where things get a little bit dicey. A couple of trades happen over up by the edge of the map. I believe it was Team Hong Kong China being scouted out from the side of Miracle, and the Jordanians are trying to open some room, but this is gonna be quite a tough predicament for them to even read where exactly is safe for them to cut through.
I mean, well, there's so many choke points here. They have to go through so many choke points. We're talking about the bridge on the left side, just on the northern side of Ruins before, and it's still being held by Brunei teams. But Leith, he just cut across Team Thailand, and we do know Moment was scouting for points just now. And surprisingly, there's no exchange of, fire between these two teams so far. They both know the fact that the Blues is start approaching, and it's reaching to a stage number 3, which is slightly painful right now. They do know they're quite far. So if they're late into the circle, which we talked about, it's slightly, whoever comes from the southern side have to pass that river area, which plenty of teams from the inner side of the circle waiting around the edges already by now. So you talked about how they want to enter in. We've got to wait and see if they have enough utility, especially their smokes grenade. Then it's going to be a-okay for them. But if they don't have enough, then it's going to be a bit of a problem.
Yeah, speaking of problems, sure, it is a huge problem for the Saudi Arabian side. 2 members being knocked out by the corner to open. And oh boy, we've seen some really good start, but this is where it is going to be a little bit tough for them to find recovery. The Jordanians, they immediately go back on their vehicles as they do know the Blue Zone is going to be closing right in. And they're not going to allow Amori to trade right back. Ragnarok secures it, and that is going to be more points now in the tally. Meanwhile, they will further commit with a big grenade, clipping over Marv, and he's barely surviving. The Blue Zone will knock him down.
It was still open fire just now, but it was a remarkable trajectory coming up from a late toss of his utilities. Back to a side of Jordan with no trade at all. I mean, that was a clean roundup with 3 eliminations towards Team Saudi Arabia, unfortunately. But at least it didn't go empty-handed for Team Saudi Arabia. They got himself 2 eliminations of that. But the circle is going to be shrinking even more. Team Malaysia definitely going to be in the next one. But it's whether the team on the south will be favored more than the north. Right now, there's plenty of team already got himself repositioned towards the northern side. If the circle shift downwards, it's a bit of a problem. But when it comes to the east of the circle, oh boy, they have to go through Team Nepal for HKG or Hong Kong China and Team Myanmar as well as Team Thailand. That's too much population on the right side of the circle right now.
Yeah, it's going to be an eruption of battles, and this is definitely something that all the spectators absolutely would love to see. Vietnam versus Malaysia versus Nepal, Myanmar, as well as Thailand. They're all clumped up over onto towards that east side. Meanwhile, west side, take a look at that. Jordan, Uzbekistan. On the south, we still have a very late entry coming from Pakistan. They might be looking to slowly sneak in. More often than not, they won't be getting all too many of all these instances of tax involved for the time being. I'm pretty surprised that, we start off the round today having a lot of teams being on the conservative, feeling a little shy. Maybe it was, that kind of warm-up round that they are still really reading the room, but it's all about not making mistakes. No team wants to bow early. Unfortunately, of course, we saw the forced maneuver coming from the side of the Kingdom of Saudi Arabia. That kind of got them taken down in the very early game, but at least they walk away with 2 points.
True. At least they have those points to start off the next Wrangled map. But I wouldn't say too shy when it comes to the first map here. I think it's just them knowing the fact that the teams are very close, despite it's only not the normal 16 teams that we actually have in the usual Pro League. But we do know this guy's rotating very fast during the stage number 1. We're talking about only 30 seconds of leading phase, and they start to try to put people down. Back towards Team Brunei, Shako actually spotted out another Team Pakistan across the other side. They just entered into the circle from the southwest of the northern side of the ruins and just crossed over the other side of the river. But we talked about Team Myanmar versus Team Thailand. Now, Team Myanmar has been dominating yesterday as well, and Team Thailand and did not show as much as we hoped for. Is this going to be the day for us to finally see, since Tony K is not playing, will things change for Team Thai in the finals?
Well, we do actually see him getting subbed in somewhere towards the middle round. So maybe Thailand's going to opt to do the same. Substitutions definitely do have a significant impact. And I believe back when he was playing in Miramar, he started to show a little bit more strength. And Team Jordan, once again, hitting the mark. I believe he has been able to tack onto one player coming in from the side of Brunei. And that's a total of 4 points, where one of the members of Saudi Arabia eventually was taken out by the blue zone, so that does not count at all. Hughes does actually get Huzaifa, and this is where the eruption begins. Zeus, he's pushing upwards, but he sees that hovercraft, and he basically double back. Tops, though, he gets Huzaifa. That is a point confirmed.
This is what I'm looking forward for. The top teams for each respective groups before. The top teams of Group A versus the top teams of Group B now in contention to see who's the bigger flex when it comes to this lobby in the finals. But when it comes to the trade, seems like Team Pakistan now picking a fight against Team Malaysia as well. Things seem to be a bit chaotic on the right side of circle as we shrink down to south. Team Vietnam still got the circle alongside with Team Jordan, but back towards Team Pakistan. Falak in trouble. Left, right. There seems to be bullets flying over his ears as well. IQ hoping they will try to do some redemption when it comes to two members of the side. Loss is heavy casualty on Team Pakistan right now versus Team Malaysia in the same compound, but we have other teams joining as well. Unfortunately, Team Thailand couldn't make it through yet for their first map here, but Falak, he's being surrounded. There's no way out for Team Pakistan here.
Well, they really want to commit to this battle, though. It really feels like it is also pressure on the side of Pakistan. Take a look at the outskirts. We have Myanmar as well as Vietnam driving side by side. They want to also chime in, but there's just a big scramble going on. They have yet to really crack the code just yet. 3 members still remaining for the side of Team Malaysia, but it's just too many smokes all around the field side that does negate them from going for that kind of push. Falak holding on to that nade, though. Pratama, meanwhile, gets a tackle onto a couple members of Brunei. And Shaco, he gets it back. It's going to be one over onto Jeremy. Meanwhile, Nepal versus Hong Kong, China. And they are going to be able to take out the entirety of Indonesia. And they only walk away with 1 point.
There's too many teams across where Team Indonesia was fighting just now. We can see even Team Nepal was part of those fights as well. But back to where Team Vietnam, Gordon seems to be focused by too many teams at the same time. There's Team Uzbekistan, Team Vietnam were trying to shut them down for very different angles, by the way. They're being sandwiched by these guys. Now Clever's on the ground, but Team Vietnam win again. He's always getting himself the MVP. Will he score another here today? And Team Nepal have to face the wrath of Team Hong Kong, China here today. We finally get to see a glimpse of them when it comes to those fight. But Team Brunei, are they shutting down the Team Vietnam? It feels like we have all the teams clustered up and a mush together here right now.
Yeah, it's going to be Vietnam there looking to close right in. Shaco all by himself right now. Needs to dodge a big one. Win does actually take a chunk out of Shaco, though. Should be all too difficult of a task. I mean, we're seeing the masterclass performance coming from Vietnam back in Group A. And now backs against the wall for Shaco. Blue zone and closing. And there we go. Hughes getting tagged up, but he will still get the job done. So that's the 3rd point for Vietnam. And they still have 3 of their members still pretty much intact. Take a look at that leaderboard, Choo Choo. This is what we call an evenly matched lobby.
It's a very different version of Team Jordan compared to yesterday. I'm loving this. Team Jordan taking the lead. Despite of that, they still have 1 player left. Same goes for Team Nepal and 5 eliminations there. But Team Vietnam, even though they've been crushed by a lot of teams left, right, and center, but they still managed to hold the position with 3 players remaining. That's a between Team Malaysia and Team Pakistan seem to be at a draw right now. It seems to be having a bit of a stalemate time. Tension building up. They are waiting for Team Hong Kong, China to be in their view to start the fight. Since they're sharing a very similar compound between Malaysia and Team Pakistan right now, I don't think they want to fight yet and just wait things out around the corner. But for Team Hong Kong China, though, the moment they try to go over that hill, it's going to be a bit of a problem. But Jordan, the moment we mentioned, Leif as the last member, unfortunately, have to bow out at 8th place.
Yeah, he was trying to reposition. He just basically got no other corners to cross. This entire sector is going to be so difficult to play out, which is why you saw Malaysia and Pakistan. They're happy to call for a truce right now because this is the only defensive hold that is left available in the map. And other than that, it was all about terrains. If you can conquer a high ground terrain, that is going to be really potent moving into late game, which is what Team Myanmar is hoping to do going up against those who are indoors. So Mernet is just going to be keeping watch for now. Over the south side, we saw Team Vietnam, and on the far west, Uzbekistan. Going to have some really good 30% of a control over onto the Western Plains.
For Team Myanmar, though, it's pretty usual for them to be very quiet in the first 6 stages and start to engage after, you know, only down with 6 or 5 teams. They definitely want to be part of the fight here without any elimination. They are the only teams without elimination right now. But back to it, Falak, they managed to break the tension between Team Malaysia and Pakistan. As Kim being knocked down, they're trying to find an opening. Falak and IQ have to work as a duo. While Team Myanmar is watching from afar, they try to steal the points, but if Tatim managed to avoid those explosion. Here comes Falak dropping another one. Will Kim somehow connect once more? This is quite difficult for Falak to do anything about. This is their lacking of manpower. Seems to be the biggest issue right now for Team Pakistan.
Definitely the case, especially with Myanmar watching from the sidelines as well. So they cannot afford to blindly push towards Team Malaysia, even if they do get the grenade knock. But looking at the current circumstance, they could just basically stay put, watch out for their resources, and only get themselves ready when some of these teams are looking to push towards. Because you take a look at that, Team Hong Kong China, they're already swarming over in North Point. Team Myanmar, they're just waiting for the right perfect moment, and there we go, looking to pop the tires. It does seem like Romeo almost got it in return, but Pops, he was just quick enough to swerve the other direction, and it is still gonna be safe for Vietnam to hold out.
It's just slightly a bit delayed for that tracking on the side of Romeo just now. He was waiting to shoot him from behind, but top. Team Vietnam definitely knows regarding the position here, and they just gave away exactly where they're standing for Team Myanmar as well. Will they take up the challenge? I think they will. This is going to be a very interesting fight between Team Myanmar and Team Vietnam right now, as they exchange nades between these two teams. Nobody seems to be connected yet, and this is the nade, almost a double down, but Romeo had themselves an opening. This is going to be a go time for Team Myanmar, and the blue approach on the side of Team Vietnam. They are in shambles, not so healthy as a trio right now, down to only 2 players are still standing. Mané and the rest of Team Myanmar keep giving them the pressure, but Uzbekistan coming up from behind. Oh, they've been sandwiched hard for Team Vietnam here.
Yeah, there's just no other choice but to subscribe to a battle of their own. Who they actually take on first, because they have no sight onto the side of Myanmar. Meanwhile, Uzbekistan have arrived to see Master Zordi now gets a knock over Fallout. That does not matter all too much right now, because all eyes on Vietnam. How well can they defend?
Back to it, the side of Mané. That one miracle rock can actually withstand him so long. But for Mané, his AUG, he has to be slightly preserving when it comes to the ammunition. Back to it, Master Smart. They do have those elevation, but unfortunately the circus shifted away from these teams. And Team Uzbekistan, they thought they want to be the third party. Unfortunately, they got caught in the process of crossfire as well. And say, Clown, there was a very crispy and very clean elimination across the other side of a hill. And, you know, even the play zone seems to be favoring Team Myanmar here right now, helping them to get those eliminations across the board. Unfortunately, Team Vietnam, this lobby seems to be slightly more challenging than the previous one.
It definitely is. You can see there's so much of a compact space for them to even try to wiggle out of. You still have 5 more teams here at stage 7, and it's drawing to a closure here. IQ, sole member remaining for the side of Pakistan, finding the target onto St. Cloud, and he does get the knock, and he's just absolutely isolated. The rest of Myanmar is not going to be able to give him the backup that he needs, but now they spot him out, and now the trade happens in between. IQ still finds it, double knock! Can he find the rest of Team Myanmar? Make it 3, and that final rampage did save the day for Myanmar to hold on. Here comes Team Malaysia to shut the doors onto the Burmese side.
What a party just now. Oh my god, from one to the other. And that was huge, almost clutchy and tight. And huge damage on Team Myanmar just by IQ coming up from Team Pakistan. But speaking of timing, Team Malaysia has it well done there. Perfectly well timed for the rotation and taking advantage. We're down to only 3 teams right now. Our top 3 teams. As the one that being scored the most is still going to be Team Uzbekistan. But what a name by Hard Boy. Definitely a Kobe on that one. Here comes another just to deal with the finishing touch on the side of Team Uzbekistan. There's no stopping them right now. They are rolling it pretty hard for Team Uzbekistan.
And you can also see by the other corner, Team Hong Kong, they've been so elusive. They've been able to mark onto 3 players. And now, vies for his spot. 3 versus 3, an even battle. And it seems like it won't be even anymore. And somehow the trades does happen. Mankey, now the only one remaining. The rest of Uzbekistan is looking to secure it. Of course, the Arc Red boys, will they paint the town red right now to get the first chicken dinner here in the finals? And yes, they will.
What a turn of events. When it comes to the finals, it's just a different ball game. And Dalia's Uzbekistan actually scored himself the first chicken for the finals here in the Asian Games Qualified 2026 PUBG Mobile version. But when he talked about, we actually go deep into the place, that was just so hard to predict about who's going to survive due to the third party all over the place on top of that very small hill.
Yeah, it really feels like suddenly the game becomes a king of the hill match. Everyone's trying to topple each other, where we saw that pretty tough sandwich situation where Vietnam was being cornered up by both Uzbek as well as Team Myanmar. And then suddenly you saw Pakistan almost 1v4. And thankfully, there was that saving grace coming from the final member of Myanmar. But boy, oh boy, it's just too close for comfort, Choo-Choo, on what went on.
I mean, I agree with you. Now, despite we do know Uzbekistan did score their, was it the first chicken? Yesterday they did score themselves a chicken as well, if I'm not mistaken. Let me recheck that.
Yes,
yeah,
they
did score themselves a first chicken yesterday, but when it comes to the entirety of the finals only, that's going to be the one that opens the curtains for our final here, Uzbekistan. But you have to give the spotlight to IQ. That was a huge, almost clutch. If he scores one more point out of that, that's going to be a whole wipe of Team Myanmar by himself. I'm not surprised if he can actually fight Team Malaysia, who just came in the last minute just now, if he actually survived for IQ.
Yeah, of course, there was just so much of a commotion out there, and you saw everyone's reserving for that last hurdle. Everyone was all hands on deck. By stage 7, we still had like, what, 5 to 6, 7 teams who were still lurking around. Team Hong Kong China, I gotta give it to them though. They have stayed out of harm's way for most part, and I thought like they have maybe a little bit more up in the tank in order to deal with Team Uzbekistan. But you saw they were so proactive. The way that they tried to take on to teams like Vietnam just goes to show that they're not gonna sit around and wait. They basically took matter to their own hands.
Now, they weren't under our spotlight yesterday, Team Uzbekistan. I feel like they have been saving this just for today games, of course. But when it comes to our top contenders, I guess we have more names to mention now. By end of today, I mean, probably have all the 12 teams go towards the main event. At this point, everybody's playing so great and a very high quality matchup as well. But when it comes to the teams outside of the blue circle, it seems like Team Hong Kong China do prefer a bit of a later rotation compared to Uzbekistan, who has been playing a lot more towards the center and also around the edge of the circle compared to Team Hong Kong China that knows the fact that there's too much people in the center of circle. They prefer to play the outside. But we don't have anybody with the double-digit elimination, but it's still a huge start here with 9 eliminations on Uzbekistan's side. But let me check for Team Pakistan. Unfortunately, IQ got that 3 knockdown, but he didn't manage to secure all those and translate to an elimination point.
Yeah, it could have actually been a conversion into 9 to 10 points in particular, but hey, it is what it is overall. But it just goes to show that it is a very, very tight competition. We have ties on 9 points. We have ties on to 7 points at the moment. Arguably, of course, for some that may have bowed early in the form of Thailand, Indonesia, Brunei, as well as Kingdom of Saudi Arabia, there's still opportunities to catch up because it's only Uzbekistan right now with the double digits. And of course, they have that 10-pointer advantage even towards those who are sitting at second as well as third. So still 5 more rounds to go, and Uzbekistan, I think like this chicken dinner almost solidifies their stance right now. If the game continues this way with Uzbekistan maybe scoring maybe another 20 points, they should be good to go.
Now, we do know they were slightly a bit of late bloomer when it comes to building up their momentum, but fortunately today they're starting it quite strong, quite early. I think they carry out the momentum since yesterday to the start of today. But we do know when it comes to the other teams, even Team Hong Kong China, I'm loving this. They are literally stepping up their games, including Jordan as well. Because if you compare with how Team Jordan played their first day, you don't see that eliminations as much as they did today, because we barely get to see them like in the top 4 last time, but they did manage to maintain sort of a balance it out between their eliminations and their position points too. So that's how they managed to squeeze into the top 6 for their day 1. But when it comes to today, they definitely show a different side of their playstyle, a bit more aggressive, slightly more proactive stage 4 onward. But you know what, we still have plenty of more Erangels to go, and talking about more actions of PUBG Mobile, we're gonna head the break for a bit. Don't go anywhere. See you guys just in a couple of minutes.
It is Team Uzbekistan that takes the lead here in the very first matchup in the 2026 Asian Games Esports Qualifiers PUBG Mobile Asian Games version. Choo choo. I think some viewers might be in awe of what went on because they have definitely been, that dark horse throughout the groups, but this time they are now the shining stars for a very good reason.
I mean, I wouldn't want to call them dark horse because I do know when it comes to where they compete themselves prior to this tournament. I mean, they have been competing against big teams like IHC back in the days, even Cornina Power. Now they are in our grade. They were in the same lobby as the Mongolian teams as well back in the day. So they are prepared for the worst case scenario and the best case scenario. You can see how flexible they are, and I like the fact they have been hiding their fangs or their best card to play here before into the finals. It's such a different version of them, and they just played enough for the group stage to be in the final. I feel like we can see them even pushing. There's no limit to this team's progress, right? Because imagine if they're still holding themselves back, what happened in the main event later if you really let the beast of these players unleash freely.
Yeah, I think we already see a glimpse of it. I mean, yesterday they had a win in Miramar. Today they have a win here in Wrangell. I think overall they're getting more and more comfortable. That is really important, especially when you have some high stakes matchup where I was basically chatting with you about, a lot of teams, they were conserving their strength to have that burst of energy heading into that late game, and it suddenly became a huge tide turner of an ordeal where, like we've mentioned before, with so many of that crowd, more of these teams they will tend to suddenly have third party, even maybe the fourth one will join in as well. So it is just utter chaos that we got to witness, but of course in that chaos was stuff of beauty as well, and close ace for IQ. That was almost it for Pakistan.
I mean, if he managed to wrap that around, that's going to be the biggest highlight of the entirety of the tournament, perhaps, because we haven't seen a player that can successfully clutch the entirety of a team by himself. If that happens, that's going to be the biggest clutch and biggest highlight in the Asian Games qualifier. Now, we haven't talked too much about Thai teams. The one thing that I noticed about Team Thai, especially Mormon in this case, if he's the last man standing for the side of Team Thailand and he's being pressured, the more he's being pressured, the better he plays. That's a unique trait just for Mormon. But for the others, we haven't seen too much of their play yet. And coming up from Team Thailand, it feels like they've been really damped down in this tournament right now.
I would definitely say that they have some stroke of bad luck from time to time. Even back in Group A, remember the very first game that they got hot dropped and then they didn't really get points? Things like that has happened. And back in Game 1, I felt like they were being a little bit too hasty on their rotation, which got them pretty much punished. So they can definitely improve from there. When we saw them bounce back up, then that's the very reason why Thailand is still a team that nobody can count out, because they can't always come in with those big swing of a round, just like how Uzbek did. I wouldn't say this is sudden. This has been a build-up. Uzbekistan, they don't really show off that, hey, we got some high firepower. They do have it. It's just that they're not flashy about it. And when they do show you, you saw how quickly they took out Hong Kong, China, and it doesn't seem like it was a fair fight.
The thing about Team Uzbekistan in this tournament here right now, we can see they're not really sticking themselves as a four. They don't really move as a unit, as a four, but they know exactly what they have to deliver for each of the players. If you know, I think it was Ramses the first time we actually see him going against so many teams just by himself. It was a bit daring for him to actually do that, slightly reckless, but they know exactly the line not to cross, not to over jeopardize your own position, and to make sure that your survivability is still going to be your main priority despite you playing as individuals to be, sustained as long as you can in the early stage. But talking about Team Brunei, this is also a step up for Team Brunei side compared to how they played previously. They definitely did not wait too long. Like yesterday, they waited such a long time until the very last circle to finally take some action.
Yeah, but I would say right now, a lot of teams are also playing similarly in the form Pele style back in game one, which is where, it goes down to sheer trading power as well, which Brunei, I think like they kind of do have certain things that gives them an edge, and that edge could very well be having Wrong involved, because now he gets subbed right in. Rift's gonna take a little bit of a break, which I think that this has been the right move coming in from Group B's stands, which see them qualify through. So they needed a little bit more of that strength in duels, which it matters a whole lot. If you were to drop 1-2 points right now in the point of time, this leaderboard is just a matter of small little details, and he might just be the difference maker.
I'm gonna disagree with that. I do prefer Wraith in the lineup. No offense. I mean, not taking the credit away from Wrong. Their rotation yesterday has been okay as well, but when it comes to Wraith, it feels like the same sort of scenario, just like Team Malaysia, when they let Voki step out. Feels slightly toned down with their proactiveness in the game compared to when Vogue is in. The same goes for Rift. I think that's one of the many reasons why we get to see Team Brunei today as the first map. Do seem a bit more comfortable compared to yesterday.
Yeah, I guess we could have, of course, certain differences of opinion from time to time as well. I believe yesterday, when we take a look at Wrong's stats as well, he did actually have quite some significant takedowns by his own as well. So I really think that he is still a very valuable player to be left out in the substitution slot. It's sad to say, there's only going to be that 4th spot for a team. Who knows, maybe in the future, 5-man PUBG Mobile in a squad? That would be pretty interesting. Right? But it's also chaotic. It's also very chaotic, because when you add one player in the squad, that means everybody adds a player in the squad. Then suddenly, what are we getting, like 100-player lobby?
Yep. It's already a 100-player lobby as a start. 35 teams being maximum in the whole lobby. But if you add in another one, then there's going to be major update of patch later in the future. But just now we have a glimpse on the twins of Team Vietnam, Bose and Zeus, and now we're changing to Snape is still going to play the next in Wrangle map, so I guess Potato will be reserved for probably Miramar. And so far I think they need the change for Team Indonesia, because yesterday, they used to be old teammates when it comes to Potato and Rosemary, but they haven't been playing for such a long time, so I guess they have very different mindset now, so they need to sort of a jump start once more for their chemistry.
Yeah, I definitely do think that there is a certain level of synergy, because they were ex-teammates in that sense, or should we just call it familiarity right at this point in time, because right now we don't really see Team Indonesia fully harness what their true potential is. Find a real good spot, start farming out, because it really feels like they have very different ideas now being implemented into what's being displayed, and they haven't really gotten into that late game for them to really show us how well they can basically fend off certain territories that's being occupied, or maybe for them to actually win a clean duel.